So today I wanted to briefly talk about Kamen Rider Zeo episode 47. So let's get started. The episode starts off from where we saw Swords give the three paths that Sogo will take. And Swords kinda tells him that he doesn't have much time to ponder on the decision. And when Sogo tries to question this, we do see what Swords is referring to, and it's that the sky wall has appeared. And with it, a bunch of rider mooks appear or build mooks. And we do see later on that Woz, Gets, and Tsukumi were looking for Zio all night. And we see that Sogo's uncle isn't initially worried about Zio because he might possibly be at the other side of the wall that actually split the country again, like in Build. And we do see that Sogo does arrive, and he does appear, and the first thing he does when he arrives is actually look at the build watch, where we actually see it's cracked and broken. And Sogo kind of explains that it had something to do with Build because he actually saw the sky wall when he initially met Build and Cross Z in 2017. And Woz kind of explains that it existed in Build's history, and because of his overlord's work, it should have ceased to exist in history. And Sogo actually pulls Sukumi into the main area with Gates and Woz following, and Woz kind of comes to the realization why Sogo is so silent, that Swartz must have contacted him, and this kind of leads to Sukumi kind of telling Sogo about how Swartz's main target is him, and Sogo kind of says that he should have realized that earlier, and that Swartz has been watching him his whole life, and Gates kind of tells Sogo that he should stay put, and Sogo kind of says that he doesn't want to sit around, and then we see Sogo kind of reveal or say the name Alpina, Tsukuyomi's real name, shocking everyone, and this is also where Sogo kind of reveals that Miharu is dead, and he wants to grant Miharu's dying wish of taking Tsukuyomi or Alpina back to the future. And we do see that they do go back to 2058 with the help of Tsukasuke Doya or Decade, and we do see that Woz and Gate start battling the build mooks, and during their fight they do actually go in to get revived and Woz Ginga. And with Decade we do see that Tsukuyomi and Sogo start talking to him about going back to 2058 to the house that Tsukasuke Doya kind of talked Tsukuyomi, and Decade kind of warns them that they might learn some truths that they didn't want to learn, and Tsukuyomi kind of tells him that but even so we have no choice but to learn, and so we kind of tells Tsukasuke Doya that he has to learn everything before he makes his choice, so he has to know. And Tsukasuke Doya kind of warns them about something, that you don't necessarily get to make a choice, and he also goes on to say that there's no bananas in this field trip, which is pretty odd. And then he opens a portal and Sogo and Tsukumi follow him, and we see when Woz and Gates start fighting against a bunch of the build mooks, and we do see that a bunch of Roymudes appear, and Gates and Woz switch forms, and when they start fighting the Roymudes, we do see that Swords appears. Fight all you want, but there's one to them. This world's destruction has begun. This all of it depends on Tokiwa Sogo's decision. And when he goes away, we do see that Gates asks himself, what is Swartz having Zio do? And we do see in 2058 that Sogo and Tsukumi managed to find young Alpina, and Alpina actually tries to attack them, and Alpina kind of asks them that who are you, and Tsukumi kind of tells her that I'm you 11 years in the future, and that she lost her memories and she just wants to ask her something. And then we see Sogo actually move forward and kind of ask her that what will happen to this world, and then we see a young Swartz appear and kind of explain what will happen, and that this world will disappear, but he'll save it by destroying every other world, every single one, and that it's unreasonable that only this world will fall, so he'll go as far as to destroy every other world so that this one will survive. And Tsukumi kind of says that I can't believe you only want this world to survive, and Tsukumi says you can't get away with this, and she points her gun at Swartz, and Swartz kind of points out that she's actually pointing a gun at a child, and she questions why the face of Swartz changes, and Sogo kind of says that he's probably making illusions with his powers, and Sogo kind of asks him how will you destroy all the other world, and Swartz kind of tells him that it's simple, he's gonna combine all of them into one, and he kind of explains that each world has its own Kamen Rider, and consolidating them into one place or into one world, and then that world can be one, and then that world will be destroyed, which is actually his plan to destroy all the worlds at once. And Tsukumi kind of realizes that that was the reason why Swords made Sogo go through all of that, collecting all the 20 watches. And when they're about to leave, we actually see Sogo kind of question him that what will he do when his sister grows more powerful than him? And Swords kind of tells him that you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong. If that were to happen, I will erase her memory and banish her. And this kind of leads to Swords attacking both Tsukumi and Sogo. And this kind of is the next transition. We see Gates and Woz are actually fighting, and then we see the tower from W and the tower from Gaim actually appear, resulting in both their mooks appearing and the Gaim and W rider watches also cracking. And this also leads to the revival of one more rider, being Kamen Rider Chase. Kamen Rider Chase isn't on their side but as the Grim Reaper on the Roymude side, and he actually manages to beat both Gates and Woz and actually finish off most of the mooks. This kinda leads to both Woz and Gates being told by the Grim Reaper that you think you can run from the Grim Reaper, human? And Woz kinda tells him that aren't you human? And Chase corrects him saying that he's a Roymude created by Krim Steinbelt, and Gates tries to make him remember Kamen Rider Mach, Go Shijima, but it looks like that the Grim Reaper isn't really affected. And Chase does tell Gates that he'd never heard of the name because Kamen Riders don't exist in his world. And when Chase goes to attack Gates, Gates says that Chase is a bit inconsistent. Gates tells him that, "Well, then why are you attacking us then?" And Chase kind of tells him that it's because you're a Kamen Rider. Yet we shouldn't exist, but why are we your enemies? Chase questions this, and Gates kind of tells him that even if history changes, you know who you really are. That you're a Kamen Rider and you know Go Shijima. This makes Chase remember of Go and their battle against Gold Drive, where he actually sacrificed himself to save Mach. And we see during 2058 where we see Sogo and Tsukumi kind of struggling against Swartz, and we do see that Tsukumi tries to kill him, but Sogo says you can't, and Tsukumi gives a statement that he'll destroy the world, we can save many lives if we kill him now, and Tsukumi tries, but she can't. And Swartz kind of says that I knew you were my precious little sister, but if you stand in my way, then you will die. And we do see that he does do a killing blow to Tsukumi, but Decade blocks the attack, killing himself. And before Schwartz can do any more harm, we do see that Dian appears to save them. And when Tsukumi and Gates go to Decade kind of tells Tsukumi that Tsukumi, we can't afford to lose you, and just dies. And we're led to think that this is another death in Zio, but it's actually not, because Dian actually pulls out another Zio 2 Rider Watch and reverts time, bringing back Kaskadoya. And we do actually see that as a side effect of what he did, he turns into another Zio 2, and he tries to take a treasure being Kaskadoya's life, and we do see that Decade actually asks for the Decade Rider Watch from Sogo, and with the Decade Rider Watch, he manages to restore his rider powers, and they actually get transported to 2019, and Dian kind of asks the question that, wasn't your powers taken? And Decade kind of explains that before that happened, he actually stored some of his into this watch, and we do see that he actually transforms into Kamen Rider Zio, and he says that Zio's powers for Zio, and now get into this. We do see that he's actually calling for Zio, and Zio transforms into Grand, and with their combined efforts, they manage to beat him. And Zio manages to actually use two final form weapons, being one of Kiva's and the other being Forze's, and he also uses the trailer cannon from Drive. And after this fight, we do see that the Grand Zio Rider Watch actually disappears and cancels out Zio's transformation. And then after this entire encounter, we do see what's the reason, and we do see a bunch of rider moves from all over the Heisei era appear, and even Advent Beast, which we saw earlier during a conversation with Woz and Gates, where they talk about Chase not being from another world, and that he comes from a world without riders. And Woz kind of says that it's probably because that Zio and Gates have already obtained the different watches, and the original riders disappearing, and the enemies that the original rider beaten before remain undefeated. Now they are moving about just as the watches are breaking, and Gates kind of asked that why are the watches breaking anyway, and the appearances of the tower and the sky wall, and Woz kind of tells him that it all seems to tie into the time and space disturbance, and Zio's at the center of it all and alongside Tsukumi. And Gates also adds that Swartz and Tsukumi are from the same time axis. Woz kind of understands of Zio's true intentions, and then we hear someone crying for help, and we do see a bunch of flying moves above them, and then we see a bunch of the Advent Beasts as well, which is really cool to see, and we actually see the Ryuki Dragon, the Bat, and even the Stingray, which is really cool. And this kind of ties to the last bit of the episode where we actually see Kaskadoya and Dian being surrounded by a bunch of the monster mooks, and then we see that the entire city is littered with monster mooks, and it kind of ends on this high note, and I really like this cliffhanger, and it makes me so excited for the final few episodes of Zio. So that's all I got to talk about in this video, so thank you guys for watching this.